live and archived games. Read about the teams and players. Relive the big moments. Every season, the Trib Live High School Sports Network is your home for high school sports. The best seat in the house is on Trib HSSN.
Week 11. Quarterfinals, semifinals. Take your pick, depending on what classification you're talking about. Welcome into the dry world headquarters of the Trib Live High School Sports Network. I'm Don Rebel. We welcome you to the Scoreboard Show, which is presented by Edgar Snyder and Associates. Go local, go with Edgar, helping injured people since 1982. There you see where to go. The personal injury law firm of Edgar Snyder and Associates, edgarsnyder.com. We thank them for their support here this postseason. Second weekend or second Friday of the WPIAL playoffs. Next Friday, the semifinals in 5A, 3A, 2A, and Class A. And next Saturday, not at Norwin High School, Pine Richland High School, the Taj Mahal. Woo! It's the 4A and 6A championships, and those games are just about set. That's where we'll start our scoreboard run. In Class 6A semifinals, all four teams playing for the first time in 2 weeks. And North Allegheny prevails tight early, but they win 35-17 over Norwin. Knights trying to get to the championship for the first time. Their season ends at 7-4. North Allegheny improves to 8-3, and they will get another crack, likely at Central Catholic. The Vikings were up big after three quarters against Kenna McMillan. The 4A championship is definitely set for noon next Saturday. It'll be number 1 McKeesport against number 7 Aliquippa. The Tigers tonight roll past Thomas Jefferson 28-3. Earlier this year, Thomas Jefferson knocked off McKeesport 16-7. Jaguar season ends at 9-3. Keemon Spell, big game. The junior running back for McKeesport getting it done. I think he had over 300 yards, 331 yards rushing to be exact. McKeesport 28, Thomas Jefferson 3. Tigers to the finals once again. They lost to TJ last year in the 4A championship game. They're 9-3. They'll be taking on the 8-3 Quips of Aliquippa. Another reverse. Earlier this year, Newcastle defeated Aliquippa in a Parkways Conference matchup. Tonight, Aliquippa blanks Newcastle 14-0. The Red Hurricane season ends at 9-3. Aliquippa against McKeesport again noon next Saturday in the 4A finals. Let's take a look at the quarterfinals, the scores that we have. In 5A, Moon defeats Penn Trafford 20-13. Again, another reverse of what happened earlier this year when Penn Trafford edged Moon 25-24. Tonight, the Tigers 20 and the Warriors 13. Penn Trafford season ends at 9-2. Moon to the semifinals 9-3. Class 3A quarterfinals. Top seed Avonworth, no problem at home. They win big over Freeport 56-7. The Antelopes now 11-0. Yellow Jackets season ends at 8-4. Central Valley, the number 3 seed, a bye last week. They win this evening 34-10 over Highlands. The Warriors now 7-4, headed to the Final Four. Highlands is their final record is 8-4. 3 finals in from the 2A quarterfinals. Seton LaSalle, the top seed, rolls past Mohawk 42-7. We'll get a recap of that coming up. The Rebels now 10-1. Warriors season ends at 6-6. Western Beaver 41, Apollo Ridge 14. Viking season done at 8-4. Golden Beavers now 10-1, headed to the semifinals where they will play the Steel Valley Ironmen. Steel Valley at home tonight beats Elwood City 42-6. The Wolverine season ends at 7-5. 3 finals in from Class A. Fort Cherry 36, Neshannock 9. The Rangers undefeated now 12-0. Lancers season ends at 8-4. Up next for Fort Cherry, number 4 seed Laurel. The Spartans over Chartiers Houston 40-21. Buck season ends at 8-4. We will get a recap of that in a moment. And Bishop Canevin ends the season of the Fraser Commodores. 50-7 is the final. Bishop Canevin improving to 9-3. Fraser done at 7-5. Let's bring in Lee Moan as a couple more finals come in. We'll get to that after our first recap. It's a Class A quarterfinals. Kind of a rough night for Lawrence County teams. Newcastle, Elwood City, Mohawk, Neshannock all lose. But Laurel prevails. The green and white headed to the Final Four, Lee.
Yeah, Laurel, they really dominated the first half. The game was almost decided in the first half. Laurel started with a 3-and-out, though, but they pinned the Chartiers Houston deep in their own territory on their first drive of the game. They went 3-and-out. Then Laurel started at the Chartiers Houston 45-yard line, hit Santini to Colton Carlson, a 40-yard pass down to the 5, and then Carlson went running in with 4:06 to go in the first quarter. They make it 7-0. Chartiers Houston just could not get anything going whatsoever. Another 3-and-out, and Laurel kicking themselves in the foot. A couple penalties. They had to punt back with Chartiers Houston again. No first downs until their final drive of the first half. Laurel would score with 3:44 to go in the first half. Jack Miles on a 13-yard run, making it 14-0. And Chartiers Houston finally getting those 2 first downs. But they were driving down inside the 10-yard line. But then Aaron Walsh would throw an interception to Tony Guyewitz just before the half, and Laurel would take that 14-0 lead. Chartiers Houston coming out to start the second half, 4-and-out. They failed on 4th down, and then Laurel would take a 27-yard run by Colton Carlson to open up the game 21-0 with 9:08 to go in the third quarter. Brody McCreary finally connecting, Aaron Walsh finally connecting with him in a 20-yard pass, making it 21-7. But then Santini with a 4-yard run, making it 28-7. They went back and forth. McCreary getting another touchdown pass from Walsh. Jack Miles, another 14-yard run, and then McCreary catching his 3rd touchdown pass from Walsh. But score ultimately 40-21 for Laurel. Interesting, Don, Santini did not throw a pass in the second half. It was all running game. 116 yards total for Colton Carlson on the night. 68 yards for Jack Miles. Another 60 from J.J. McBride, excuse me. And so it was all running game for the Laurel Spartans. On the other side, Aaron Walsh, rough first half, but second half he was 10 of 15 in the second half, finished 11 of 22, 187 yards of those 3 touchdowns. But it was just too much dominance on the defensive line. The offensive line for Chartiers Houston, Don, they outweighed them by about 40 pounds a man, but the defensive line really took the pressure and took everything to the Chartiers Houston offensive line all night long, and Aaron Walsh is under constant pressure. And Laurel will go on and try to do the miraculous next week and try to upset Fort Cherry.
We'll see. It won't be easy, but the one thing I like having seen Laurel is that, you know, they have that balanced ground attack. That's how they usually like to get things done. But if they have to, Lucas Santini's a good one, and they don't. If they don't have to, they won't. But if they have to, he can sling it around.
Yeah, he only threw 5 passes tonight, 4 for 5 for 79 yards. That's all he had to do, you know. So, and they did enough to get victories. It's still the second week in a row, a few too many penalties again. They're gonna have to clean that up next week for sure.
Lee, enjoy. Have a good weekend.
I plan on it. Thank you. We'll be off to Dillsburg, PA for North Allegheny soccer tomorrow.
All right, there you go. For anyone that's keeping track of where will Lee Moan be on Saturday, there's your answer. Lee Moan checking in. Laurel defeats Chartiers Houston by a score of 40-21. Let's bring in Randy Gore, find out where he will be on Saturday. Any insight as to where you will be tomorrow?
I'll be at Carnegie Mellon actually tomorrow for college football. That's why Lee Moan is going across the state. So I have a much better trip to Pittsburgh.
Shoo, young man, shoo. All right, we've struck.
They're both making that trip on behalf of NA, which you can find that link on the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
Look at you, man. You should be a disc jockey. The segue was beautiful. A lot of questions. Could the Tigers get it done? Norwin, a lot of love, new blood, having an outstanding season, but a close game at the half. North Allegheny, big second half, and they're moving on to the finals once again.
Yeah, fourth straight year, the Tigers move on to the 6A championship, and it was a second half of big plays for the Tigers, facing a Norwin team that was in the semifinal round for the first time since 1999 when they faced McKeesport and Cecil Howard back in that time frame. Norwin trying for their first ever trip to the WPIAL championship and jumped out to a 3-0 lead in the first quarter. In doing so, Tristan Josephic, a 41-yard field goal connection to make it 3-0 Knights with 2:55 to go in the first period. A bit of a plodding first half for both teams, some drives for both squads, but they were derailed by untimely penalties, holding calls, procedure calls that took away, put the teams off schedule behind the sticks. North Allegheny, though, was able to get it into the end zone. They didn't need to really drive it. They hit on a big play. And it was a 56-yard touchdown pass, Brady Brinkley to Cam Kushner with 7:10 to go in the second quarter, and North Allegheny took a 7-3 lead. Norwin's ensuing drive, they marched it deep into NA territory, tried for another field goal attempt, but this one was blocked by Lincoln Hope, the Pitt recruit, and that kept the score at 7-3, which would be your score at the half. And then in the second half, North Allegheny offensively blew up. Norwin had the football first, went 3 and out. Tigers on their first drive of the second half, it was just a one-play drive, another big play, 58-yard screen pass for a touchdown, Brinkley to Kushner. Those two connect again. It was 14-3 Tigers, less than a minute and a half in to the third quarter. Norwin, again, a short drive forced the punt. Tigers 3 plays later. It was a Luke Rohan 30-yard touchdown run, and NA's lead increased to 21-3 with 8:36 remaining in the third period. Norwin, as things stretched into the fourth quarter, the Tigers had a couple of drives that didn't yield points but took a lot of time off the clock. Norwin was left with under 8 minutes to play in the fourth quarter when they needed a quick strike, and they got one. Tristan Tavares with an 80-yard touchdown pass to Jake Knight. That cut it to 21-10, a breath of life much needed for the Norwin Knights at that point in time. But the onside kick attempt by Norwin booted a little too far, made it for an easy recovery by the Tigers, a 16-yard onside kick. Tigers recovered it. And then, again, another one-play drive for NA, a 57-yard touchdown run by Luke Rohan, who finished with 181 yards rushing on the night. That his second touchdown run of the evening made it 28-10. Next drive for Norwin, Mason Brown interception for the Tigers at the Norwin 38-yard line. And Luke Rohan, another touchdown run, this time an 11-yard touchdown run to blow things open at 35-10. Norwin with one last score to cap the night while things were out of reach at that point, but it was a 2-yard touchdown run by Tristan Tavares with 2:39 left to bring us to our final score of 35-17, North Allegheny. Gio Rocheroff, 153 yards rushing for Norwin. Tristan Tavares, 215 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Also had a rushing touchdown, as we mentioned, at the end of the fourth quarter. Rohan, the 181-yard touchdown effort on the ground, and rushing effort on the ground. 3 touchdowns for Rohan. Caden Petro, also 7 carries for 70 yards, and Brady Brinkley through the air, 158 for 2 scores. Cam Kushner, 3 catches for 119 and 2 scores. So North Allegheny with the win, advancing to the WPIAL finals in 6A. For the 4th straight year, an 8-3 record now overall for North Allegheny. Norwin's season comes to an end at 7-4. Great year for Norwin, and certainly a team that had it was a very evenly matched matchup coming into tonight. But North Allegheny with the big plays in the second half, and they were able to get back to a place that they are certainly familiar with, the finals.
Indeed, and again, it looks like it's going to be Central Catholic still waiting for the final, but they were up big over at Cannon McMillan. Randy, good luck tomorrow at CMU and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. You as well. I appreciate it, Don.
All right. The great Randy Gore, as North Allegheny wins. Give them credit. I think a lot of people were sort of eyeballing Norwin in this game, but the Tigers, after winning by 3 earlier this year against the Knights, 35-17 the final. Let me run down the scores. We got recaps coming up, but for people joining us, all the scores are final except for two. We're waiting for two final scores. 35-17 North Allegheny over Norwood. The 5A quarterfinals in the books. Pine Richland 42, Shaler 10, Moon 20, Penn Trafford 13, Peters Township 42, Bethel Park 14, and Upper St. Clair defeats Woodland Hills 36-26. So the semifinals next week, it'll be number 1 Pine Richland 10-1 against number 5 Moon at 9-3, and number 2 Peters Township 11-0 against number 6 Upper St. Clair at 10-2. Peters beat St. Clair in a tight one earlier this year. 4A championship game set, noon, Pine Richland next Saturday. McKeesport against Aliquippa. McKeesport tonight beats Thomas Jefferson 28-3. Aliquippa 14, Newcastle nothing. And the final is in from the other 6A semifinal. Central Catholic 44, Cannon McMillan 7. Big Mac season ends at 4-7. The Vikings 10-1 heading into another championship game against North Allegheny. All right, Class 3A, Avonworth 56, Freeport 7, North Catholic 55, Elizabeth Forward 32, and Central Valley 34-10 over Highlands. 2A semifinals are set in the quarters tonight. Seton LaSalle 42, Mohawk 7, Washington 31, South Allegheny 7, Western Beaver 41, Apollo Ridge 14, and Steel Valley over Elwood City 42-6. Ironman, the lone tri-champion from the Allegheny Conference, still left. 10-1 Seton LaSalle against 10-2 Washington next week. Those two teams met in week 9. Western Beaver at 10-1 against 8-3 Steel Valley next week. Class A semifinals are set. Fort Cherry 36, Neshannock 9, Laurel 40, Chartiers Houston 21, Clairton 38, Jeanette 33. That might be the stunner of the night, that the Jayhawks scored 33 points, ending the 9-game shutout streak for Clairton, but still the Bears survive and win. They will head to the semifinals to take on Bishop Canevin. Crusaders roll over Fraser 50-7. So 11-1 Clairton against 9-3 Bishop Canevin. 12-0 Fort Cherry will take on 11-1 Laurel. All right, let's get back to the recaps. Check in with James Dotson. James had the call of the Seton LaSalle victory over Mohawk, a game that I think a lot of us, including the two of us, thought it would be a lot closer than it was.
Yeah, I thought it would be as well, Don. And the rest versus rust debate, I think, was the main thing that was going to be a potential issue for the Seton LaSalle Rebels. Well, they shook off the rust in a hurry. 42-7 the final score, 42 points in the first half, really controlling it. The only rust, honestly, came right at the beginning of the game. The opening drive, a 10-play drive for Seton LaSalle, took over 6 minutes off the clock, a turnover on downs. That was the only drive they didn't score points in the first half, as they got after a 3-and-out. Punt pinned the Rebels down inside their own 5-yard line. Just took them 3 plays. Aaron Loritz, an 85-yard touchdown pass from Kai Jones, made it 7-0 late in the first quarter. Then a talented sophomore running back got off and running. Kymar Freeman, he was a workhorse in the first half, Don. 17 carries for 150 yards, including a 34-yard touchdown, made it 14-0 early in the second quarter. After a fumble off a decent Mohawk drive, that's when the onslaught really began. Seton LaSalle would score 4 touchdowns in 3 minutes and 11 seconds to end the first half. Kai Jones called his own number from 10 yards out. And then on the very next play, a Loritz deflection of a pass ends in the hands of Will Martin. The Duquesne commit takes it to the house from 10 yards out. That made it 28-0. Loritz gets his second receiving touchdown on the next drive with just under a minute to play. That put it in the Mercy Bowl 35-0. And then just for good measure, a sack from Will Martin. This time it's Loritz recovering the fumble, and they scored 2 plays later, another Freeman rushing touchdown. 42-0 was the score at the halftime break. Mohawk would get a touchdown on their only offensive drive of the third quarter, a 25-yard jump ball. Bobby Fadden to Joey Nail one last time to get those two in the scorebook. But it was all Seton LaSalle. They outgained Mohawk 346-59 in the first half. that offensive line, absolutely legit. They showed it right from the get-go. They dominated up front all night long, and the defense really impressed as well. No points allowed in that first half, and just pressure all night in the face of Bobby Fadden. So Seton LaSalle will advance, and it will be a rematch that we saw just 2 weeks ago between the Rebels and the Little Prexies for the chance to go to Acrisure Stadium. Rebels trying to get right back there where they were a year ago. But they certainly looked all that and a bag of chips here tonight, Don. They dominated in the trenches especially. That was a big part of it. And got to give a couple of quick shout-outs to this Mohawk team. Only the second player in WPIAL history in Bobby Fadden to run for 1,000 yards, pass for 1,000 yards, and receiving yards over 1,000 yards in his career. And funny enough, he did all three tonight, as he actually had a pass, a lot that reflected the line. One of them completed Bobby Fadden to Bobby Fadden for an 11-yard loss on the play. But nonetheless, just a storied career. This Mohawk team's made the playoffs 5 straight times, but they ran into an absolute juggernaut here tonight in Seton LaSalle as they advance to the semifinals with the 42-7 victory.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Rebels and Little Prexies for the second time in, I guess it'll be 3 weeks next week in the semifinals. Thank you, James.
Thank you, sir, Rebel.
All right, James Dotson checking in with the Seton LaSalle victory over Mohawk. The other final score that we did not have has gone final. Imani Christian remains undefeated at 3A quarterfinals. They win at home over Hopewell, 59-21. Viking season ends at 7-5, so it will be 11-0 Imani Christian, 7-4 Central Valley next week in a 3A semifinal. The other semifinal next week in 3A, Avonworth against North Catholic. So 3 teams from the Western Hills Conference make it to the Final Four in Class 3A. All right, Paul Patera joins us now. He was in Elizabeth tonight, the Class 3A matchup. I just mentioned it. North Catholic a winner, 55-32. These two teams love to score points. They had a wild one, 80-some points last year in the quarterfinals, a game won by EF, and now 87 points here this evening in very nasty conditions, Paul.
Throughout much of the game, there was a driving rain, but didn't seem to stop these offenses tonight. If you wanted to see defense, you came to the wrong place tonight. 55-32, as Dawn mentioned, North Catholic defeating Elizabeth Forward. North Catholic had 10 offensive possessions tonight. 8 of them ended in touchdowns. The 10th possession was the victory formation for 2 plays. So the North Catholic offense moved at will. And of course, when you're talking about the North Catholic offense, you're talking about Joey Filitsky, who had 5 touchdown passes in this one, 53, 7, 46, 36, and 57 yards. 53 was the first one. And then you had Logan Shoddy, who had a couple of touchdown runs. He had a touchdown pass reception of 53 yards and touchdown runs of 10 and 93 yards. The first half was a tight one in this one. It was 21-17 at the half. A field goal on the final play of the half by Luke Holdren of 36 yards. And we had the tight first half, but then the turnover bugaboo hit Elizabeth Forward in the second half. They turned over 3 straight drives, and North Catholic put 3 touchdowns on the board in 5 minutes and 1 second. And that led to the cushion. A 4th turnover turned into another touchdown. And that's how North Catholic got the big win. Filitsky, as we told you, 5 touchdown passes. It gives him 44 in the season. He flirted with the 300-yard mark. Ryan Messina, a big game, 170 yards rushing, 237 yards passing for Elizabeth Forward. He threw for a touchdown, rushed for a couple. But the Elizabeth Forward Warriors, the turnovers are what hurt the Warriors, and that's why North Catholic is advancing to play Avonworth tonight. North Catholic Elizabeth Forward ends the season 9-2. Now, North Catholic and Avonworth met in October, a game won handily by the Antelopes, played at North Catholic, J.C. Stonefield, but North Catholic, if there's nothing else, their offense can put points on the board. This is a team that came into tonight averaging 45 points a game. When they score a lot of points, they win. So that'll be the matchup next week to see if they can do that with the Avonworth Antelopes. My first chance to see Joey Filitsky play. Not a big kid, but he can play quarterback. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, fun to watch. And he's put up some, this is now 2 years in a row, so no fluke. He has a good chance to lead the district in passing. Paul, enjoy. What we've been asking everybody,
Yeah.
Where are they going to be tomorrow? Where will Paul Patera be tomorrow?
I will be in Washington, PA, working my full-time job tomorrow. It's my weekend in the hopper, and I've got a couple of events to cover in Washington.
All these exciting plans, and then you bring work into it all.
I know. Well, one of them's a turkey giveaway, and the other one's a dedication of a building. So.
All right, as long as they're not throwing turkeys out of a helicopter. The old
the humanity. As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, sir. Have a good weekend.
Very few are going to get that, but those of us in Paul and I's age group will definitely get it. Nonetheless, North Catholic wins, and they're going to have a tall task next week as they take on Avonworth. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. It's the Week 11 edition of the Scoreboard Show on the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
You're watching the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
All right, we hit the reset button. Don Rebel back with you. And again, thanks to our friends at Edgar Snyder and Associates. This show is presented by Edgar Snyder and Associates. Go with Edgar, helping injured people since 1982. Check them out, edgarsnyder.com, and they have been helping us along with our postseason coverage here this fall. They'll be doing so again in the winter and the spring. Support those who support high school sports, right? Another recap coming up in a moment, but again, let's run down the scores real quick, and then we can set up the matches for next week a little bit later on. Class 6A semifinals, Central Catholic over Cannon McMillan 44-7. North Allegheny defeats Norwin 35-17. 5A quarterfinals, Pine Richland 42, Shaler 10. Moon 20, Penn Trafford 13. Peters Township 42, Bethel Park 14, and Upper St. Clair defeats Woodland Hills 36-26. 4A semifinals, McKeesport 28, Thomas Jefferson 3, Aliquippa 14, Newcastle nothing. 3A quarterfinals, we'll have a recap of the McKeesport and Thomas Jefferson game in a moment. 3A quarterfinals, Avonworth 56, Freeport 7, North Catholic 55, Elizabeth Forward 32, Imani Christian 59, Hopewell 21, Central Valley 34, Highlands 10. 2A quarterfinals, Seton LaSalle 42, Mohawk 7, Washington 31, South Allegheny 7. Great season for the Gladiators, but they lose 2 of their final 3. Western Beaver 41, Apollo Ridge 14, and Steel Valley defeats Elwood City 42-6. Class A quarterfinals, Fort Cherry 36, Neshannock 9, Laurel 40, Chartiers Houston 21, Clairton over Jeanette 38-33, and Bishop Canavan 50, Fraser 7. Proud Fraser alum Alex Lyons joins us now. He was in Bridgeville tonight, Chartiers Valley High School, for the 4A semifinal game between McKeesport and Thomas Jefferson. We saw a lot of rematches in 4A, 5A, 6A. 7 of the 8 games tonight were rematches, and we saw a lot of flips. We saw Aliquippa win when they lost earlier to Newcastle. We saw Moon win when they lost earlier to Penn Trafford. And this game that you called, Thomas Jefferson won earlier, 16-7, but not the case here tonight.
Yeah, no, not the case at all. Keemon Spell played 3 plays the first time these two teams met, and he made an immediate impact in this game tonight. Keemon Spell showed off in the biggest of moments, and McKeesport's going back to their 3rd straight championship. So 3 straight appearances. They're hoping 3rd time's the charm. They set up that 2023 rematch, but the offenses both stalled on their opening drive, but it was drive number 2 for the Tigers that got them on the board. Keemon Spell runs of 22 and 17 on that 17-yard scamper, became the school's all-time leading rusher as a junior, and then 6 yards later, he was into the end zone, and the Tigers had their first lead of the game, taking a 7-0 advantage after both teams would punt. Thomas Jefferson finally got something going. Tyler Eber would bust through for 25 yards, and then on 4th and 6, Harrison Coling would find Dom Volumino for 14 and a first down. Jaguars would move it inside the red zone, but it was Javian Robinson picking off Harrison Coling at the 1-yard line. A few plays later, and 97 yards later, Keemon Spell would find the end zone once again. 99-yard, 57-second drive, and it was 14-0 in favor of the Tigers just like that. After both teams went 3 and out, again, the Jaguars had the opportunity to get points on the board before the end of the half. On 3rd and 12, Coling went to Egerton for a first down. Then a 4th down conversion by Tyler Eber would eventually put the Thomas Jefferson Jaguars in striking distance. But again, Coling was errant with a pass, and Keemon Spell came across for the interception. And on the final play of the opening half, man, did we have excitement. McKeesport held on. They snapped it with 1 second left, and Keemon Spell went 72 yards, tracked down by the last line of defense in Beatcoat, and he kept it 14-0 at the break. But Thomas Jefferson, they would not be shut out in this game. Opening drive would march down the field. Harrison would find his brother Jackson for 25, and then a pass interference call would give Thomas Jefferson another first down, eventually leading to a Sam Wessel 26-yard field goal, the only scoring for Thomas Jefferson. But they had a chance to get back in the game. 14-3, got the football back, and once again marched inside the McKeesport 30. But once again, it was this Tiger defense coming away. An interception, Javian Robinson down at the 8-yard line. TJ would force a punt, but they would go 3 and out, and then Keemon Spell looked like he had no chance of getting more than 7 or 8 yards, went 55 yards into the end zone, making it 21-3. And for good measure, Akeem Cochran would strike from 59 yards out to make it a 28-7 game. Spell, 21 yards on 3 carries in the first meeting. 14 carries, 316, and 3 touchdowns tonight for the number 1 back in the country. And he was a big reason why McKeesport is headed to their 3rd straight WPIAL championship, and they are going back to their 6th title since 1997, looking to get that first championship win since 2005 when they beat Woodland Hills, Don.
Phenomenal. You run out of superlatives to set the all-time rushing record. There have been some outstanding athletes at McKeesport going way back, even long before me. And for him to break the record as a junior, and a lot of those great running backs were quarterbacks too. Keep that in mind. But
yeah, no one plays as a freshman here, really. And Keemon saw the field as a freshman. I guess that's how you do it as a junior.
That helps.
Missed a lot of the season, too.
Good job. Have a good weekend.
You as well, Don.
All right, Alex Lyons checking in. Yeah, 3rd straight championship. They lost, McKeesport lost to Aliquippa in 2023, lost to Thomas Jefferson a year ago. They'll get their revenge tour, right? They took care of Thomas Jefferson tonight. They get Aliquippa next Saturday noon at Pine Richland High School. By the way, if you're keeping score at home, Aliquippa with this victory will be in Class 4A. Over the next 2 years. Because that puts them over the threshold of points, transfers, all that stuff that's way too complicated. But if Aliquippa would have lost tonight, the Quips would have fallen to 3A over the next 2 years, the 2-year cycle. But they win, so they will stay in 4A. They won't be going to 5A. They will be in 4A over the next 2 years. Possibly defending their championship. We'll see if they can pull it off next Saturday. That's the 12 o'clock game at Pine Richland. The 6 p.m. game, the 6A championship game, is North Allegheny taking on Central Catholic. All right, just a breakdown. Well, we can do that. We can do that later. Mitch Montani is standing by. He had the call of the other 6A semifinal game. We heard from Randy Gore earlier. No surprise, Central Catholic defeats Cannon McMillan. They beat them 2 weeks ago in their most recent game, both teams. And they do it again, and the defending champs are again on their way, I think for the 37th straight year, to the 6A championship game. They played in 9 of the 10 6A championship games, and they will do so again tonight or next week after beating Cannon McMillan tonight, Mitch Montani.
Yeah, Don, we talked about it a good bit tonight. The only exception to the North Allegheny and Central Catholic Class 6A championship bound mentality was in 2018, and that was the Seneca Valley against Pine Richland game. But it's been a game that has featured North Allegheny quite a bit, but even more so Central Catholic. As you mentioned, they punched their 9th ticket in the 10 years that the 6A format has existed, and they were able to get yet another solid win against Cannon Mac. They beat them in mercy roll fashion 2 weeks ago in their last game, 45-10. They win tonight, 44-7. Cannon Mac actually got on the board first. A 76-yard fumble return for a touchdown by Matt Hirsch late in the first quarter gave the Big Macs a 7-0 lead. They had a lot of grit here tonight, did the Big Macs, but they were bit heavily by the injury bug toward the end of that first half. Braden Collins with a pretty scary lower body injury for the Big Macs. Their big tight end got injured, as did their quarterback, Ty Jansma. So they were fighting through a lot of injury situations tonight. And it's a big reason why Central Catholic scored 24 unanswered to end half number 1. And Owen Herrick touchdown pass to Colson Gatton from 80 yards out was the first score. And then Roman Thompson, the big running back, scored a couple of times, once from 5 yards out and another time from 2 yards out, to give them those 3 touchdowns. They had 2-point conversions on all 3 of them and went up 24-7 at the half. In the second half, Central Catholic just continued to roll. Herrick found Maceo Watkins for a touchdown in the third quarter. Roman Thompson had another touchdown at the start of the fourth quarter. It was 37-7 at that point. And then an 11-yard touchdown run by Chris Black is what put Central Catholic over the mercy roll threshold and wrapped up the scoring. 44-7 the final score. 3 touchdowns from Roman Thompson on the Central Catholic side. He surpasses the 20 threshold. He's now got 21 on the season, the running back for the Vikings. Chris Black, actually the leading rusher for the Vikings tonight, 9 carries for 168 yards. Cannon Mac, Don, just 117 yards of total offense. They don't muster an offensive point tonight, with that defensive score being their only score in that first quarter. It was all Central Catholic here tonight, and they set up yet another date with the North Allegheny Tigers at Pine Richland next week.
Yep, 10-1 Vikings, 8-3 Tigers. Central Catholic beating North Allegheny earlier this year, giving them the 6A regular season championship. Now they'll try to repeat as WPIAL champions. Mitch, thank you very much. Have a great weekend, pal.
You too, Don.
All right, Mitch Montani checking in. That sets the stage for the 6A final. Also, the stage is set for the 4A championship game. Thomas Jefferson falls to McKeesport 28-3. Up next for the Tigers, now that they've defeated their 2024 champions, they go after the 2023 champions. Aliquippa 14, Newcastle nothing. Eric Thomas kind enough to join us to recap another semifinal victory and yet another trip. They had that long 16-year string end last year. They start another one this year with a win over the Red Hurricanes. Eric?
Yeah, Don, and this Aliquippa team just seems like they have like a different mindset about them. Very businesslike when they were out in the field pregame tonight. Not a lot of the kind of jawing back and forth or like the hyped up thing. And look, their offense had a lot of trouble getting started tonight. Newcastle had a chance to get down the field right at the end of the first half and was going for a touchdown. They got aided by a penalty. They had it inside the 5-yard line. They had two cracks at it with 7 seconds to go in the half, and Aliquippa knocked both away. So they go to the half scoreless, and neither offense really was doing a whole lot in this first half. And then second half, Newcastle gets the ball to start the second half. They turn it over. Aliquippa then turns it right back over. They get inside the 10. They turn it right back over. The two teams are kind of volleying back and forth, but the game really flipped in the third quarter, about halfway through. And the Newcastle defense, which has been great all season long, they've had a lot of problems stopping the run the last 3 weeks. They've given up almost 200 yards in 3 straight games. They gave up over 200 tonight to Aliquippa rushing. And they had a chance to get off the field defensively, and it appeared that they had tipped a punt from Aliquippa. And then all of a sudden, we get one of the side judges was saying that it was tipped. The head ref said no, it was running into the kicker. It was a 15-yard penalty. Next play, J.J. Work goes 39 yards for the first touchdown of the game. And from that point on, it was pretty deflating. Newcastle special teams let them down. They muffed 2 punts. One of them was just a backbreaker that Omar Thomas couldn't handle, and then he tried to pick it up and make something happen with it. Aliquippa was right there, knocked the ball loose, recovered it at the 5. 2 plays later, Clayster Longmire goes in for the final score, and it was Aliquippa's rushing attack tonight, Don. They went over for over 200 yards, J.J. Work over 150, and their offensive line just got after tonight. Their defense played lights out. Marino Graham didn't factor much into it. Newcastle wasn't able to run the ball much. They couldn't get Kai Cox involved throwing the football. They tried to feed Chase Lemon a lot tonight. He had a couple of catches, but not a huge factor. Damian Harrison was not a factor. This Quips team, and I think everybody sort of sensed this going into the game this week, that this was a different team now that Marcus Counsell was back. Marcus Counsell wasn't a factor in this game tonight either. He was 2 of 6 passing. He completed his first 2 of the game, and then they just lined up in power I and pounded the ball the whole night. And they're physical. I mean, they're physical. They run the ball great. They haven't asked Counsell to do much since he's been back, and they feel like they're back. They've been under the radar all year, but Aliquippa's back in the spotlight once again.
Didn't do much tonight, but it was a big part of that victory over Trinity last week in the semi or the quarterfinals in Class 4A, and I'm sure his presence has lifted the spirits. This team hasn't, we're used to Aliquippa, the great program that they are, just kind of bullying their way to this point. It has not been the case this year. They have played a lot of tight games, a lot of scares, but they have survived, and maybe that's it's a different route, but it's just as effective as they get the revenge after losing to the Canes earlier this year. Great season for Marino Graham and the Red Hurricanes ends tonight at 9-3. Eric, appreciate your help. Thanks, pal.
You got it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Eric Thomas checking in. That gives us one more recap before we break down the game, the scores once again. We'll do that before we take a break and start up the roundtable. Bob Orquist joins us now. A wild one at the Wolverina in Turtle Creek, where Upper St. Clair makes the road trip and knocks off Woodland Hills, Robert.
Just in case, Don. That's the Wolverina.
I didn't think you were anywhere. That'd have been something else, to be honest with you. I'd be more impressed if you were at another stadium and doing this report.
Here at the Wolverina, it was a fun one. 6-seeded Upper St. Clair, 3rd-seeded Woodland Hills. Woodland Hills jumped out to a 14-0 lead. The one kickoff all night for Jacobo Echeverria that didn't end up in a touchback was received by Carter Akins at the 1-yard line on the opening kickoff. He runs a few yards, pitches it back to Scoop Smith, who goes 99 yards for a touchdown. The storied career just continues to grow. 17 seconds in, it was 7-0. Next drive, Woodland Hills gets the ball back. They go 98 yards. and they score Cam Walter with a touchdown pass to Malik McLeod. It was 14-0. But that's when things kind of turned around. Upper St. Clair kind of got their footing. They would score 26 unanswered points. Dante Curry, who had a big game, at a 10-yard run. Jacobo Echeverria had a 21-yard field goal. And then John Banbury took over. He had 3 touchdown runs, 5, 6, and 1 in between, a high punt snap for Woodland Hills, gave them 2 points. So 23 points in the third quarter for Upper St. Clair to take a 33-14 lead. But then Woodland Hills came back, a 4-play drive. Walter threw a 41-yard touchdown pass to Landon Akins to bring them within 16. So two scores, 2 2-point conversions. Echeverria would make it 16, with a field goal, another field goal. And then Scoop Smith ended his career with a late touchdown catch of 20 yards from Cam Walter to make the final score 36-26. So Scoop Smith leaves as the all-time leading receiver here at Woodland Hills. He adds a couple more touchdowns to his ledger, 21 touchdowns this season. Cam Walter, his career is over here at Woodland Hills. He's the all-time leading passer yards-wise and touchdown-wise for Woodland Hills. Ethan Hellman, who didn't have a great first half, ended up with a big second half, and he's now the all-time leading passer single season-wise and career-wise at Upper St. Clair on this one. But John Banbury and Dante Curry were both good. They both ran for over 100 yards. Mike Junko said afterwards, to the defense, we made plays and stops when we needed to. And they get the 10-point victory, 10-2 for the Panthers. Woodland Hills, a disappointing end for the Big East champs, Don. They finish at 8-3. And stop me if you heard this before. Upper St. Clair, Peters Township in a big game. Semifinals last year was 7-3 Indians over the Panthers.
Yeah, and semifinals again this year. This will be the 4th meeting, and the 3 previous over the last 2 seasons have been.
Mike Junko laughingly said, Don, I think we played like 14 times in the last 4 seasons.
Probably feels that way to him, that's for sure.
Are you shut down? No. I just want to get a picture of your laptop.
All right.
Sorry.
We enjoyed the undercoating of the the Wolverina, so that was good.
I got it. So, that's it, Don. Sorry. Talking with the stat guys from Upper St. Clair. They did a great job. They had a lot of work tonight, and they did a great job. One final shout-out, great career ending, Ziggy Moore. He was fantastic. Had at least 12 solo tackles, the linebacker for Woodland Hills. Probably over 20 total in the game. He was fantastic on defense for the Wolverines.
Good stuff. Be careful. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Talk to you.
The great Bob
Peace.
Orchard. Peace, indeed. All right. That was fun. 36-26. That's 2 teams tonight. Woodland Hills and Elizabeth Forward that had 14-0 leads at home and ended up losing. So much for the old, we got to start strong on the road. Both Upper St. Clair and North Catholic falling behind big, but yet getting the job done. All right, before we take a break and get ready for the round table, I do want to run down the final scores again for folks that may be just joining us. 6A and 4A, these were semifinal matchups. The championships are next Saturday at Pine Richland High School. In 6A, Central Catholic 44, Cannon McMillan 7, North Allegheny 35, and Norwin 17. It'll be 10-1 Central Catholic against 8-3 North Allegheny. Once again, 3rd straight year for the 6A championship. 4th straight year, I believe. Yeah. 22, 23, 24, 25. Yeah. Big Mac season ends at 4-7. Knights, great season for Norwin. But it ends 1 game shy of the championship at 7-4. The 4A semifinals tonight, McKeesport 28, Thomas Jefferson 3, Aliquippa 14, Newcastle nothing. So rematch of the 2023 championship. It'll be 9-3 McKeesport against 8-3 Aliquippa. Noon at Pine Richland next Saturday. The 6A championship game is at 6 p.m. Thomas Jefferson season ends at 9-3. Newcastle season ends at 9-3. As far as the quarterfinals tonight in 5A, Pine Richland 42, Shaler 10, Moon 20, Penn Trafford 13, Peters Township 42, Bethel Park 14, and as you just heard from Bobby O, Upper St. Clair 36, Woodland Hills 26, 10-1 Pine Richland against 9-3 Moon, 11-0 Peters Township against 10-2 Upper St. Clair. Shaler's season ends at 4-8. Penn Trafford, a good one, ends at 9-2. Bethel Park ends their season at 7-5, and Woodland Hills ends their season at 8-3. Class 3A quarterfinals: Avonworth 56, Freeport 7, North Catholic 55, Elizabeth Forward 32, Imani Christian 59, Hopewell 21, and Central Valley 34, Highlands 10. The semifinal matchups next week, sites to be determined. Avonworth 11-0 against North Catholic 9-3 for the second time this season. Imani Christian 11-0 against Central Valley at 7-4. Teams ending their season in 3A tonight. Freeport done at 8-4. Elizabeth Forward season ends at 9-2. Hopewell season ends at 7-5. And Highlands, their season is over. Final record of 8-4. 2A quarterfinals tonight. Seton LaSalle 42, Mohawk 7, Washington 31, South Allegheny 7, Western Beaver 41, Apollo Ridge 14, and Steel Valley 42, Elwood City 6. So 4 dominant victories in Class 2A this evening. The semifinal matchups: a pair of Century Conference teams met in Week 9 for the conference championship, with Seton LaSalle beating Washington. Next week, 10-2 Washington against 10-1 Seton LaSalle. Western Beaver at 10-1 will take on 8-3 Steel Valley in the other 2A semifinals. Season ends for Mohawk at 6-6. South Allegheny, great season, but they're done at 10-2. Apollo Ridge is done at 8-4, and Elwood City season is over at 7-5. Finally, Class A: Fort Cherry 36, Neshannock 9, Laurel 40, Chartiers Houston 21, Clairton 38, Jeanette 33, and Bishop Canavan over Fraser 50-7. 12-0 Fort Cherry will take on 11-1 Laurel in one semifinal contest, 11-1 Clairton against 9-3 Bishop Canavan in the other semifinal contest. So the top 4 seeds prevail in Class A. And that's let me just see here. The only classification that can say that, is Class A, where the top 4 make it to the semifinals. Season ends for Neshannock at 8-4. Chartiers Houston, great bounce back season after only a couple wins last year. They finish at 8-4. Jeanette, they scored 33 points. They should get something against that Clairton defense. Their season ends at 8-4. And Fraser, great season. Again, like Chartiers Houston, great turnaround season. They're done at 7-5. Again, before the break, let me just break down the conferences. In Class 5A, final 4 teams, 3 of them are from the Allegheny 6 Conference. Again, more reason as to why South Fayette was not in the conference, being kind of silly. The Northeast Conference has 1 team. Big East, out. In 4A, the championship will be Greater Allegheny Conference against Parkway Conference. Final 4 in Class 3A, 3 teams from the Western Hills Conference. No surprise, much like the Allegheny 6 Conference, that was the deepest and most competitive conference in Class 3A. 1 team still remaining from the Allegheny 7, Zippo from the Interstate Conference. 2A, all the conferences represented in the Final 4. Century Conference with 2 teams, Allegheny Conference and the Midwestern Athletic Conference with 1 each. And finally, in Class A, Black Hills Conference gets 2, Fort Cherry and Bishop Canavan into the Final 4. Eastern Conference with 1, Big 7 Conference with 1, and Tri-County South didn't even have anyone make the quarterfinals this season. All right, we take a commercial break. When we return, the Week 11 edition of the Round Table. Sean Saputo will jump on in and give us his thoughts on what happened tonight and looking ahead to the semifinals next Friday and the 2 championship games next Saturday. It's the Week 11 edition of the Scoreboard Show presented by Edgar Snyder and Associates. Go local, go with Edgar, helping injured people since 1982, here on the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
This is Micah. He tweaked his shoulder. So did Max. And Miles did too. And while they could all use some quality PT, at AHN Sports Medicine, we know they each need a little something different to make a comeback. Our doctors and specialists pinpoint that difference and make a personalized rehab plan to protect Miles' backswing and Max's throwing arm and Micah's serve. Because at AHN Sports Medicine, we see you. This is Miles. He needs PT. Jess needs training. And Max needs both. And while they're all athletic, at AHN Sports Medicine, we know they each need a little something different to hit their goals. Our doctors and specialists pinpoint that difference and make a personalized plan to improve Miles' backswing and Max's throwing arm and Jess's form. Because at AHN Sports Medicine, we see you.
The Rebel Yell podcast with Don Rebel happens 4 times a week. Visit with some of the WPIAL's best players in the Player of the Week podcast. Some of the district's top coaches are featured in the Team of the Week podcast. A weekly preview podcast looks at some of the best matchups in the WPIAL. And finally, a Friday night recap podcast with scores and statistical highlights. Find the Rebel Yell podcast on hssn.triblive.com.
And now on Spotify.
Do you need custom printed materials for your school or organization? Hosting a fundraiser or special event? PrintSource can help. Visit printpittsburgh.com for a free quote on yard signs or banners, flyers and stickers, invitations, program books and tickets, even yearbooks. We are your single source solution for printed materials, signage, and so much more. Visit us online at printpittsburgh.com. PrintSource. Design, print, deliver.
Hi, I'm Adam Goodnack, and I'm a student in Seton Hill University's Wukich School of Nursing. I did my clinical rounds throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and it strengthened my belief in the path that I chose. I could really feel that I was making an impact. The faculty in my coursework at Seton Hill has prepared me to dive right into my field. I've received personalized support and expert guidance. I'm moving forward as a nurse of tomorrow at Seton Hill University.
You're watching the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
All right, Week 11 Scoreboard Show continues as we now have set the stage for semifinal Friday in 5A, 3A, 2A, and Class A next week. Although the matchups are set, the locations will be determined, likely announced, I believe, tomorrow by the WPIAL. And the championships are set. We already know where they'll be. Pine Richland High School in 4A and 6A. 4A title game at noon. 6A championship game is at 6 p.m. All right, let's bring in Sean Saputo, joining me here on the round table for Week 11. Sean, we thank you for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Jaunted home from our first basketball game tonight.
Oh, and how did things go? All right.
Unfortunate loss for the Red Hawks. Lost to Carnegie Mellon, 91-83. Or 90-83, actually.
Spirited competition, I'm sure.
They play. We at La Roche, we play a tough non-conference schedule, so it's best way to get you ready for the conference. That's what matters most.
Wow. All right. There you go. Whip that cliche out of nowhere. Good job. All right. So shall we start with the semifinals here tonight and then go to the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I was thinking us going like 6-4, 5-3, 2-1.
All right. Well, you're the boss, so we'll do that. 6A, same old, same old. Once again, it'll be Central Catholic against North Allegheny. Who would have thunk? But there was some legitimate questions coming in whether we would see Vikings Tigers take two. Not necessarily on the Vikings side. They, again, for the second time in 3 weeks, take care of business against Cannon McMillan, winning expectedly 44-7 to end the season for the Big Macs. But there was, after a great season by Norwin, which included a close loss that North Allegheny had to score late to pull out the victory in the first meeting between the Knights and the Tigers. But no such drama needed. Close at the half, but North Allegheny pulls away 35-17 Tigers over the Knights.
Yeah, North Allegheny's who I want to hit on most, because if you look at the last 2 weeks of the season, them getting bludgeoned by Pine Richland, and then in the final week of the regular season falling to Seneca Valley, a lot of people were wondering whether or not North Allegheny was even going to get past Norwin, considering the way that first matchup went and how you said, Don, North Allegheny had to score late to even win that football game. And I think it shows that North Allegheny not only silenced those who thought that they were going to get upset by the Knights in this one, but they also put together a second half performance, which could kind of give people the inkling that maybe they can give Central Catholic a better run than you would have thought just 2 weeks ago, even a week ago. So tip of the cap to North Allegheny for being able to rebound, especially in that second half after a rough 2.5 weeks of football. But for Central Catholic, business is business as usual. I mean, what else can you say? They took on Cannon Mac for a second time. A lot of times playing that team twice in a 3-week span can be a little tough. You know, you got good film on them, but Cannon Mac, the athletes just aren't to the level that Central Catholic is. And it's, you know, it makes for what we're used to in the 6A championship game. I think Central Catholic's going to be a heavy favorite, but if North Allegheny can play as they did in the second half tonight against Norwin, maybe they can give Central Catholic a little bit better of a run than they did last season.
Yeah, that was was it last year, 2 years ago? I think it was last year, the championship game. One of them, the regular season was a blowout. We thought we'd get a blowout, but
that was 2 years ago, because last year I think it was 28-0 Central Catholic won, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you're right. No, you're right. So it was 2 years ago where I think we were all expecting what we saw last year to happen, and then they gave them a battle. So a lot of pride at Art Walker's squad. We'll see. 6 p.m. kickoff at Pine Richland. There should be a lot of black and gold in the stands for that one as they take on Central Catholic. That's a 1 versus 2 matchup. In 6A, it will be 1 versus 7. Yeah, it shouldn't have been a 7, but that's the argument that's already done and over with. 4A, like 6A, were both rematches, but unlike 6A, where both teams, Central Catholic and North Allegheny, won again. Not the case. Flip reverse field in the semifinals. McKeesport beats Thomas Jefferson 28-3 after losing to the Jaguars not only earlier this year, 16-7, but falling to TJ last season in the title game. And after losing to Newcastle 18-12 in the Parkway Conference earlier this year, Aliquippa blanks the Red Hurricanes 14-0.
Well, a lot of people forget in that matchup early season with McKeesport and Thomas Jefferson, I think Kamon Spell only played like 3 or 4 snaps in that game, so he was not a factor. But tonight, he was a factor. Over 330 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Last season, Thomas Jefferson found a way to slow him down in the championship game. He didn't even rush for 70 yards in that title game last year. But, you know, a year later, he proved to be the difference maker. And Thomas Jefferson also only won that game earlier this season when it was late. They scored late and then got a pick 6, which led to that 16-7 final score. So McKeesport trying to finally break that schneid for the championship. Last was 2005 for the Tigers. So come on, Spell, with a big night. As for Aliquippa, you mentioned it. It's true. That was not a number 7 seed. A lot of us didn't expect Marquez Council to be playing quarterback during this postseason. He comes out, and you know what? They've won ugly these 2 playoff games. A tough battle against Trinity. Only put 14 on the board tonight, but they shut out Newcastle, and that's a team they lost to. They get the revenge in the second meeting, but I'm interested to see how next week goes in this Class 4A championship game. Can Aliquippa slow down Come On Spell? I still think Thomas Jefferson, now that they were getting healthy, still had one of the better defenses in 4A. And if Come On Spell could do what he did tonight to the Jaguars to Aliquippa next week, it might be a long night for Quip fans, because they're going to need to score next week, and putting up, 14 or 21 might not win you the football game next week.
I spelled 331 yards against Thomas Jefferson. We'll see what he does against Aliquippa in the rematch. The McKeesport, maybe this is meant to be, because they avenged last year's championship game with the semifinal win over TJ. Now they get a crack at the 2023 loss when they fell to Aliquippa in the 4A championship game. Congratulations to Coach Miller, Tigers, 3rd straight WPIAL championship game. Looking for that elusive goal. That's noon kickoff for the Quips and the Tigers at Pine Richland High School. All right, let's now switch focus to the quarterfinals, setting up next Friday's semifinal games. We'll start in 5A. We'll break these down: left side of the bracket, right side of the bracket. Pine Richland, top seed, no problem at all in their Week 9 rematch. They beat Shaler pretty good then. They beat them pretty good tonight. 42-10, Rams over the Titans. Up next for Pine Richland, the Moon Tigers. They lost to Penn Trafford earlier by 1. They beat the Warriors tonight by 7. Moon 20, Penn Trafford 13.
Yeah, we talked about those 2 matchups in 3 weeks because of 6A with Canon Mac and Central Catholic, and Shaler ran into that same problem, but they also ran into a fresh Pine Richland team that had a week off and was able to get some players that might have, needed a little bit of rest, that extra rest. So we can't say we're surprised by Pine Richland as of right now, and till they are proven otherwise. They're the class of 5A as the defending champions. On the flip side, I'm by no means shocked that the Moon Tigers defeated Penn Trafford. That is a Moon team that is really sound defensively. They hit the big play when they need to on offense. Their offense has changed this year. You're normally used to that ground and pound option attack that Moon has had over the years, but with Andrew Cross at the quarterback position, it's not only his legs that have been a key factor, it's his arm that has really boosted in his senior campaign. So Moon versus Pine Richland is going to be an interesting matchup, because Moon was able to hold Upper St. Clair this year, and Ethan Hellman. They did a great job against Upper St. Clair defensively. They did a great job against Peters Township defensively for 3 quarters out of the 4 in that one. So now can they do what they did in those 2 games against Pine Richland come semifinal time on Friday night?
Tall task indeed. Tigers 9-3, and the Rams 10-1. Right side of the bracket, Peters Township 42, Bethel Park 14. Second victory for the Indians in 3 weeks over the Blackhawks. And Upper St. Clair down 14-0 early. Wins at Woodland Hills 36-26.
When I at one point was checking scores and everything, I saw Bethel and Peters were tied at 14, and then all of a sudden it was the explosion went off for Peters Township, and it just Bethel Park this year. I still think they needed that one more year. They weren't exactly ready this year. They had lost a lot from last year on the offensive side of the football. They could still put up the points, but the defense was not where it needed to be this year, especially with the level of talent that Peters Township has. On the flip side for St. Clair and Woodland Hills, I did see it was 14-0, but when I saw Upper St. Clair start to score and Woodland Hills' inability to not score, after seeing them in week 9 against Kiski, I wasn't really surprised because Woodland Hills' offense didn't look as electrifying as it did in the earlier parts of the season. I'm curious how much of that Kiski game Upper St. Clair gave in terms of the film to see what to do to limit Scoop Smith, because even in that game against Kiski a couple of weeks back, Scoop Smith had one big run, and other than that, he was very limited throughout the game. But Ethan Hellman's one of the best quarterbacks in the district from Upper St. Clair. That is going to be a fun rematch between Upper St. Clair and Peters Township, because last year St. Clair got the win in the regular season. Peters Township beat them in the postseason. This year it was Peters Township in the regular season. Can the Panthers avenge that loss like Peters Township did last year next week?
Week 5 this year, 24-20, Peters Township over Upper St. Clair. They'll meet in the semifinals. 11-0 Indians, 10-2 Panthers. The teams that saw their season end in 6A, 5A, and 4A: Cannon McMillan 4-7, Norwin 7-4, Shaler 4-8, Penn Trafford 9-2, Bethel Park 7-5, and Woodland Hills 8-3. Thomas Jefferson 9-3, and Newcastle 9-3. All right, let's go to Class 3A quarterfinals. Left side, Avonworth, no problem at all. The Antelopes, a machine thus far this year, and they keep a rolling. 56-7 over Freeport. And North Catholic 55, Elizabeth Forward 32.
I'm going to save the breath on Avonworth just because, like you said, they are just they're a steam train just rolling through this year. Nobody has even come remotely close with Avonworth. But I am actually excited to see the matchup next week against North Catholic. I think really North Catholic is a tougher matchup for Avonworth than Elizabeth Forward is, just because of Joey Felitsky and the passing offense that North Catholic possesses. I'm curious to see what Avonworth does defensively against a very pass-happy attack with North Catholic. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. I think North Catholic, they're not going to score at will like they've done a lot this season, but I still think North Catholic's going to put up some points on the board. It's just a matter of if they can get timely stops against the Antelopes next week.
Yeah, week 8. So it wasn't that long ago, only 3 weeks ago, that Avonworth beat North Catholic 42-10. Again, you slow down the Trojans' offense, not easy to do. Not too many teams have done it, and you have a chance. 9-3 North Catholic, 11-0 Avonworth. That's an old rivalry. Continuing now in the Western Hills Conference. Again, Martorelli maybe for that one. We'll see. The other side, the two home teams coming off byes, victorious. Imani Christian 59, Hopewell 21, and Central Valley beats Highlands 34-10.
Again, if North Catholic isn't able to adjust this week after the first time they played Avonworth, I do think Amani Christian's the only team that really has the skill and the talent that's going to be able to match up with Avonworth. I mean, that team has been electric all season long. Hopewell, great season for the Vikings and getting to the quarterfinals. They have a young core that's going to keep continuing to get better and better. So don't expect to not hear Hopewell's name for the next couple of years. But, you know, a lot of people in rankings, Central Valley was so low in 3A as the early season went on, but people don't realize just how hard of a non-conference schedule Central Valley had to start the year. That's why the record was what the record was going into the latter stages of the season. And that's why I think this year, considering it happened last year with Central Valley, the committee saw that this is not a number 6 seed like they were last year. This is still a top 4 team in the district in Class 3A. And Central Valley is, you know, Mark Lyons is class act in terms of head coaching. He's so good at getting his team ready to go, and they're going to put up a really good fight against the Monty Christian next week, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I still think, despite championships, kind of underrated Coach Lyons. 7-4 Central Valley, 11-0 Imani Christian. All right, Class 2A, left side of the bracket, Seton LaSalle. over Mohawk, 42-7. I thought this one would be a lot closer than it was. Rebels really amping up to try to get back to Acrisure Stadium. They have to get past a familiar face. Washington 31, South Allegheny 7. Another game that I think a lot of people thought was going to be very competitive. Kudos to the Little Prexies as they get it done.
Yeah, I'll start initially by saying I'm surprised at Seton LaSalle this year, considering they had graduated their quarterback. They were supposed to have Anthony Smith come in. He doesn't come in. Then Khalil Taylor leaves. He goes to Pine Richland.
Right.
And
they lost 2 receivers,
Yeah, everything's up in the air. It's Seton LaSalle, and they managed to just continue to roll as if nothing happened, and they are dominating everybody in Class 2A right now. The bottom half is what surprised me most. I think that Steel Valley loss to South Allegheny really let out some steam in this Gladiator squad, because for Wash High to go in and dominate, Wash High hasn't really, they're good. Don't get me wrong. It's a solid Wash High team, but for South Allegheny to only put up 7 points with the offense that the Gladiators have had this year and what Wash High was able to do to them, that was a very impressive win by Wash High. And I think that's going to make for a very interesting matchup against Seton LaSalle next week.
Week 9, they played for the Century Conference Championship. Seton LaSalle winning at Dormont Stadium 27-14. Other side of the bracket, MAC Conference champion Western Beaver, first night game at in industry at Western Beaver High School. Golden Beavers 41, Apollo Ridge 14, and Steel Valley 42, Elwood City 6.
Yeah, Steel Valley's been on a roll, especially ever since that loss to Apollo Ridge. They've really gotten things back into motion with the offense. They beat South Allegheny. They got that 3 seed, and they just continued to roll the train tonight. But Western Beaver is going to be an interesting matchup for Steel Valley. We'll see how Steel Valley's going to do stopping the running game that Western Beaver has with Wyatt Sparbaney, with quarterback Amari Marshall. They don't air the ball out as much as they did when they had Javen Peel there over the last couple years. So we're going to see how Steel Valley does in terms of fun. And it's going to next week.
Ironman 8-3, Golden Beavers 10-1. Sites to be determined for those 2A quarterfinals. All right, let's go down to Class A now. Fort Cherry takes care of business. They remain undefeated, 36-9. They eliminate Neshannock and Laurel. Bad night for Lawrence County, but Laurel, the lone survivor, 40-21, ending Chartiers Houston's surprise run.
Rough night for Fort Cherry, huh? Only 36 points on the board. That's not common with the Rangers right now. They actually had to play a full game tonight against Neshannock, and the Lancers, gave them, as tough a battle as you can in a quarterfinal situation against a team like Fort Cherry. Again, but expectations were there. We expected Fort Cherry to be moving on, most likely play for a championship. Laurel, though, great season for Laurel right now. They continue to impress. But I also have to give a shout out to Dan Liss, what he did with that Chartiers Houston team this year. He really turned them around. A big 4-game winning streak to end the season with 3 big conference wins. The upset last week of Southside. But it's not like they went to Laurel and they got smacked around. It was a 40-21 final score, So shout out to Dan Liss and what he did for Chartiers Houston. But Laurel has its work cut out for it next week. And, if they can find a way to stop Matt Sig, we'll see. But I think, unfortunate, case for Laurel that they might be seeing its season come to an end next Friday.
You're not going to stop them. You just hope to contain them.
Yep.
When you look around at the 20 games around the WPIAL, Fort Cherry 12-0, Laurel 11-1. When you look at the 20 games and you think, okay, well, what's the biggest surprise, the biggest upset? Hard to call upsets now that you're this far into the postseason. Everyone's pretty darn good. Upper St. Clair falling behind early, coming back to beat Woodland Hills. Aliquippa shutting out a pretty good Newcastle team. Maybe that's your surprise. North Catholic falling behind by 14 and coming back. Maybe that's your surprise. Biggest surprise of the night, Jeanette scores 33 points against the Clareton defense, and they lose.
Yep.
The Bears 38, the Jayhawks 33, and in the other quarterfinal in that side of the bracket, Bishop Canevin, no problem, eliminating Fraser 50-7.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with Bishop Canevin. I mean, with Mayante Mott and Brady Wagner, this team has just been rolling this season. Justin Melvin at the receiver position. That is a really solid team. And I love that you hit on the surprise of the night, because the ones you mentioned, like, with upsets and things like that, St. Clair is not a number 6 seed type team. And you look at them and it's like, no, they're really not. But then you look at what Clareton, I didn't know it was possible Clareton could allow points. I mean, the way that this season has gone, they allowed 19 in week 0 and didn't allow anything for the next 10 weeks. That's how good this Clareton defense has been. But it also shows those second time that you see those teams, you can kind of get, a little bit of film and see what you were doing wrong, and it can change the tides of things. It's just Clareton's offense is so good, it's hard to stop them enough, even if you put 33 points on the board. But now, what a lot of people were thinking of, we have a guaranteed Fort Cherry versus Clareton final, and the way Jeanette played Clareton tonight, Bishop Canevin could very well take down Clareton next week, because if Clareton's defense plays tonight the way it did against Jeanette, don't be shocked if the Crusaders pull off what many would say is an upset, because this Crusader offense is rolling right now.
Yeah, they don't have the quarterback from the regular season, ineligible to play, the Wagner kid. Yeah. But Olds has stepped in, their leading receiver has stepped in nicely at quarterback, and he saw some time at quarterback in preparation for this postseason. Mott's playing well. I think Fort Cherry Clareton, there was such a tremendous championship game a year ago, and everyone's had them 1-2 all year long. But I've said, while those two are definitely a notch above everyone else is pretty good. And both Laurel and Bishop Canevin are not to be slept on. Yes, there's a good chance that we see Rangers Bears take 2, but the green and white and the navy and powder blue are going to have something to say about it. We'll see. 9-3 Crusaders, 11-1 Bears in the semifinals.
And real quick, off your point, Don, the one thing, though, that we haven't seen this year is we haven't seen a kink in the armor yet with Fort Cherry, which makes Laurel beating them seem maybe even like a taller task. We now saw the kink in the armor of Clareton. And can Bishop Canevin continue to add another link to it?
Well, the Crusaders now have the Jeanette blueprint.
Yep.
But if you're Clareton, you can go look at the Fort Cherry Bishop Canevin game and how the Rangers rolled the Crusaders.
Yeah.
You can use that as a blueprint. So there you go. The teams that have seen their season come to an end, the quarterfinals in 3A, 2A, and Class A. Freeport season ends at 8-4. Elizabeth Forward 9-2. Hopewell 7-5, but promising with Boo Boo Armstrong only halfway through his scholastic career. Highlands ends their season at 8-4. 2A, Mohawk 6-6. They struggled, and they were really struggling earlier this year, so really finished strong to reach the quarterfinals. South Allegheny, an amazing season, share of the conference title, but losing 2 of the last 3 will leave a bad taste in their mouth in the offseason. Apollo Ridge 8-4, Elwood City 7-5, and in Class A, Neshannock 8-4, Chartiers Houston 8-4, Jeanette 8-4, and Fraser 8-4. No, Fraser 7-5. And kudos again, Char Houston and Fraser, great turnaround seasons here in 2015, but it ends tonight. I've always said, and then we'll get your final thoughts as we start to wind up here. Again, 5A, 3A, 2A, Class A, final for Friday coming up. The toughest loss, especially next week, but the toughest loss for any high school athlete here in the WPIAL is that semifinal loss.
Yeah.
You make it to the finals, and if you get to play at Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium now, you get to play at the Palumbo Center or now the Peterson Event Center. You get to play at Wild Things Park. Man, that's special. And even if you lose, even if you have to settle for silver, that'll stink, but you've just had a lifelong memory of playing in the district championship for those. Semifinals, you're kind of quickly forgotten. You lose, you're that close to getting to reaching your goal, everybody's goal on the chalkboard. I know they don't have chalkboards now, the whiteboards at the beginning of the season is win your section, reach the WPL finals, win a district title, win a state title. So close, in that bitterness of just missing, kind of what the Toronto Blue Jays feel, right? That bitterness is real.
I don't know. I think football, it's hard just because like the way you mentioned baseball, the way you mentioned basketball, playing, making the final and being a runner up, and you get that lifelong memory of playing in that venue, but your season still gets to continue, even if you are the runner up in those situations where you get this lifelong memory of playing at Acrisure Stadium if you're in 5, 3, 2, and 1A, but you don't get to continue that season like every other sport. You're done right then and there. So I actually think it's just as hard in that championship realm and in football, especially compared to the other sports, because those seasons just keep continuing on after that.
Yeah, your season comes to the sudden end.
Yeah.
But again, I think play it kind of makes up for it. Again, not in the moment. A year, 5 years, 10 years, when you're getting together with your boys.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's special. All right, let's get your general thoughts. Again, the two classes, the championship games are set, the final four set in the other four classes. Just what jumps out from this second Friday of the postseason?
Again, a lot of non-surprises, I would say. I think we got a lot of teams that winning tonight that we expected to be winning. I'm looking forward to being at Pine Richland next weekend. Make sure you follow HSSN at Trib Live HSSN on Twitter. We'll be covering social media for the two championship games next week. So excited to be at Pine Richland next week to see those two championship games. We're going to have a really good one in 4A with McKeesport and Aliquippa, and then with the 6A championship. When Central Catholic and North Allegheny get together, you never know what's going to happen. So it'll be a fun weekend next weekend. But I'm anxious to see a lot of the way the semifinals go in the other classifications. Can Upper St. Clair, can they get past Peters Township? Can Moon get past Pine Richland? That's going to be a fun 5A. 3A is going to be, really fun as well. Can North Catholic avenge a loss to Avonworth? How does Amani and Central Valley do against one another? Can Wash High continue to run and upset, top-seeded Seton LaSalle? It's going to be a fun week next week on Friday and especially Saturday.
Yeah, all the Central Catholic and McKeesport make it to the finals as the number one seed in their respective classifications. Pine Richland, Avonworth, Seton LaSalle, and Fort Cherry all still alive heading into their semifinals. So no major upsets as far as the top seeds are concerned. They're all still alive and well. And just, again, Trinity was knocked off, but that was a very debatable number 2 seed. North Allegheny, Peters Township, Imani Christian, Western Beaver, and Clarendon. So the twos are ready. Yeah, so the teams that I think we kind of all expected to be there are there, and that makes it even better. Championships in 4A, 6A next Saturday, and then the following Saturday at Acrisure for 5A, 3A, 2A, and Class A. All right, let's wrap it up by giving some love to Edgar Snyder and Associates. Go local, go with Edgar. helping injured people for a lot of time, for 43 years since 1982. So that's a long time. Sean, you know the good folks at Edgar Snyder.
Yeah.
Give them some love.
Yeah, absolutely. A special thank you to everybody at Edgar Snyder, who I've worked alongside, and for them coming on for this multi-year deal, bringing the postseason to you. We're excited to have them, and they're going to be a part of all of our regular season coverage this year and next year as well. So you're going to see a lot of Edgar Snyder on the network here over the next couple of seasons.
That's right. So do the point. You've been working with them. Do the point. There you go.
I can't do it as good as Edgar does.
No one can, but nonetheless. Thanks to producer Chris Lackner. Thanks to Sean Saputo for jumping in. Very busy night for him with his real job and then his fake job here at the network. I'm Don Rebel. Thank you for joining us. This is the Week 11 edition of the WPIAL Scoreboard Show. One more left. We'll be here next Friday on the Trib Live High School Sports Network.